by Sigmar. What time is it? Holy fuck. Greetings, Dowie and Dwarden, and welcome. I am Sigmar's Lorekeeper. It's been a while. Aside from my decades-long slumber and my absorption of lore, it's been a hectic time with school starting up again and moving. Suffice to say, I've been occupied. But fret not, lore fiends. I have a great topic for you all today. For the first time on this channel, we're going to go over one character in specific. It's a great opportunity to give more detail and go more in depth and give more information than I can fit into a single faction focus. And who better to start this series with than arguably the most badass character in Warhammer. Not Age of Sigmar, not fantasy, not 40k, all of Warhammer. The astute of you may have already known which brazen individual I'm referring to. It's almost like I make thumbnails for these videos. So let's not waste any more time. Today we pay homage to the man, the myth, the legend, Gotrek Gurnisson. For those of you that somehow don't know about this absolute unit of a dwarf, let me give you a little introduction to the most brutish dwarf in the mortal realms. There may be some of you who come to AOS from Old World of Warhammer Fantasy Battles, so the name Gotrek may be familiar to you. A dwarven slayer from an ancient, lost dwarven city. At least, lost by the standards of the historians of the mortal realms. You see, unlike many characters in the Age of Sigmar, Gotrek hails from the old world of malice, in Sigmar's own words. Back in those times, an unspeakable crime was committed by the man, resulting in him taking a slayer's oath. Not like any fire slayer, an oath of repentance taken on by dwarves of the mountain holds of old. An oath to earn an honorable death, to be washed free of their crimes, and earn a place among their ancestors. A grim task for any dwarf, or Dowie as they refer to themselves as, but one meant to bring honor to someone who lost it. Now this wouldn't usually be a problem for any other Dowie in a dwarven hold. Earn your honor back by achieving an honorable death. Fall in battle against a worthy foe. And it's true, this shouldn't make Gotrek anything particularly special. There were thousands, if not tens of thousands of slayers. Well, problem is, Gotrek won't fucking die. No matter what was thrown at him, be it an entire orc warband or a damn bloodthirster of Khorne, nothing was enough to take down the stubborn dwarf. This is a bit of a problem when you want to die a worthy death and join your ancestors. And one thing that definitely didn't help was the axe he carried, rumored to be an axe wielded by Grimnir, the dwarven god himself. The biggest Mary Sue, known as Teclis himself, even analyzed his aura and said the axe was transforming him into something more than just a dwarf. Sucks that GW decided to can the old world before any meaningful conclusion to Gotrek's story could happen, whoopsie daisy. Aside from the end times just being like the worst thing ever printed, Gotrek did get what he wanted, or so he thought. Not to discuss the old world lore for too long, I'll simplify. Essentially, he was sent to the Chaos Realm, where he thought he could achieve his doom and enter the afterlife of his ancestors. This is quite the origin story from a character from the old world, and there is definitely a chance I got some things wrong. So for all of you old world aficionados, feel free to correct any mistakes in my research, and I know you will. Because AOS is my specialty, not fantasy battles. Speaking of Age of Sigmar, let's jump into how Gotrek Goddamned Gurnisson factors into the objectively better fantasy setting. When I said killing Gotrek is harder to do than make Nurgle take a shower, I was not exaggerating in the slightest. After an untold amount of time in the realm of chaos, slaughtering endless hordes of demons of all kinds, he somehow happened upon a realm gate. Something completely foreign to this angry bastard, and so he wandered on through. Now, let's picture this in our heads for a second. You are an incredibly powerful, angry dwarf that has spent what could have been the past few years in a literal chaotic hellscape, and you just stumbled through a magical gate. He was pretty fucking pissed, even though what he came through on the other side was a Fire Slayer lodge, and even though he entered into a room full of a bunch of half-naked dwarven that looked almost identical to him, he understandably thought this was some sort of Tzeentchian trick and started blasting. It took a solid few dozen of the aforementioned half-naked dwarven to hold him down and throw him into a cell. This at least made him realize that he wasn't still in literal hell. But he still wasn't the happiest guy in the realms. On top of that, he was thrown into a cell with an elf, something that would ruin the day of any dwarf from the old mountain holds. Well, this wouldn't be a story about a character from Malice if the Skaven didn't come in and muck things up. And so they did. They showed up and stole something known as the Master Rune, an incredibly powerful artifact created by a legendary dwarven runesmith. A fire slayer by the name of Broder released Gotrek and the elf Malineth to help. Still dubious of the situation he was in, he decided to head to Hammerhall Aksha to seek some answers, and maybe his long-lost companion from the old world that was. But along the way, typical Warhammer shenanigans occurred, and after saving a princess, a plot to invade the city with a massive chaos force was uncovered. Gotrek, son of Gurni, has a peculiar habit of getting wrapped up in world-ending, life-or-death situations, and he also has an even stranger habit of winning these scenarios. This time was no different. No doubt, against his will, he took on the task of destroying this plot. With plenty of help and one world-ending battle at the Burning Gate later, Gotrek found himself trying to stop a chaos ritual being conducted using the very same master rune stolen from before. Not that he had much time to decide how to save the fate of the mortal realms, but made a very Gotrekian decision. Gotrekian. That's not a word, but I guess every word is made up somehow, so I'll roll with it. Gotrekian. Done rashly and without thinking much, but still ends up succeeding greatly. Not to be confused with Skavenous, as in, fucked up so bad it actually worked. The point is, Gotrek weighed his options and opted for the one that involved him grabbing the Master Rune and hammering the damn thing into his very own chest. I told you, a very Gotrekian decision. This obviously ruined the ritual quite a bit, and the day was inevitably saved by Mr. Gurnisson and his merry band. Now the Master Rune being hammered into his chest had some unforeseen side effects. Like every other Fire Slayer, a rune made of gold grants the Dawi great power. But unlike the other runes hammered into the flesh of Fire Slayers, the power granted by the Master Rune during one of his rages was unparalleled. I'm talking turning him into a 4'0" ball of unbridled fury, power, and elf discrimination. When I say it brought his power to a whole new level, I mean that nothing short of godlike threats could even pose an inconvenience to him. Weirdly enough, this didn't inconvenience the dwarf that much, other than the fact that he was seen by many Fire Slayers as Grimnir Reborn, which he hated. But Gotrek Stinkin' Gurnisson was undeterred, and continued his personal quest of seeking a doom, although with a new addenda to his cause. He felt the gods, and Grimnir in particular, had manipulated and used him for their own means, and stolen his doom and honor. So now he didn't want any old doom, he wanted to settle a score with the gods. And who better to start with than the arguably assholiest of them all, Nagash. Too shyish it is then, I guess, but he needed a traveling companion, so he gracefully decides to bring along the very elf he was locked in that cell with, Malaneth. Now, having been revealed to him as an agent of the Order of Azir and a daughter of Cain, seemed to him to be the best guide and source of information on the mortal realms. So now our favorite angry short king is traveling axe in hand, companion by his side, and with a serious score to settle. To many of you, this is a familiar place to leave off with Gotrek, like the start of every one of his books. But I won't be diving into his books and the stories within. I'd like to leave those for a different time, and give them all their own time to shine. Instead, I'd like to talk about the man himself, or dwarf himself, whatever. Gotrek Axe Tornado Gurnisson was definitely a slayer, who swore a slayer's oath, but that doesn't mean all that much to anyone anymore. It is not an oath that anyone would recognize in the modern mortal realms, and even though he looks a lot like them, he doesn't like the Fire Slayers of our day and age. He calls them half-wit smiths and workers, mediocre warriors, and poor excuses for slayers. Doesn't take Teclis to know that this doesn't make him particularly welcome amongst the Dwarden of Age of Sigmar, because don't you think for one second he has any less criticisms about the Caradron. So, we have a Slayer in a world that doesn't know what a Slayer is, and is gradually becoming the world he once lost. What is an anger issue-ridden mohawk-toting dwarf to do? Well, teach him how it's done, of course. Gotrek is still dedicated to who he is, but now, along the way, he does want to fight injustice, teach through action what honor and duty really is. And for all that is Dawi, get bloody even with the gods. Teaching the realms what honor means is no easy task. I mean, the Daughters of Cain exist, and they are supposedly an order faction, so he sure has his work cut out for him. For all of his faults, like rash decision-making, the manners of a cracked-out honey badger, an abuse of alcohol that would make the Lannisters blush, and a temper with a fuse as short as he has no issue at all amassing followers. I mean it, this guy acquires followers and friends like he's collecting them. There is something to be said about being honest, even when that means calling a blight king a stinky right bastard right to his stinky right bastard face, or calling the leader of a Fire Slayer lodge a weak coward who is doing wrong by his family, a dwarf who just lost all of his sons in less than a month. Damn, Gotrek, that one was brutal, even for you. That part of Soul Slayer had me staring at the book in my hand saying to myself, what the fuck, Gotrek? I almost stopped liking him by even 1%, but then him and that king got in a good old brawl and became besties. This friendship still brings me to tears. If you know, you know. Anyways, I said I wasn't going to be talking about the book, so let's wrap up. I cannot put it simply how well written and fun of a character Gotrek Skavensbane Gurnisson is. He is one of my favorite characters of all time. Not only in the Warhammer verse, he is just so damn funny and relatable in a lot of ways. I understand why so many people loved his stories in the old world, but there is one thing in the Age of Sigmar that makes him rise even higher in my eyes: his relatability. Gotrek is not only an incredibly entertaining character because of his brash nature and violence-prone behavior, but because he's a fish out of water in the mortal realms. He's a relic of a bygone era, ancient even by the terms of the oldest characters in the setting, aside from a few gods. His ways and beliefs have fallen by the wayside, and the only people he can relate to are few and far between. Not to get too deep, but the newer Gotrek stories show his battle with loneliness and the feelings of never being understood. I know this is something that I've related to once or twice in the past, and it makes me root for him all the more in every story, and feel joy when he does find someone he can relate to in the mortal realms, which is what makes him one of my favorite characters of all time, and more than worthy of being the first subject in this new character deep dive series. I am terribly sorry to all of you for this chaos-corrupted upload schedule. Life comes at you fast, and school starting up and moving makes life all the more chaotic. But I am settling into a solid rhythm now, and videos are back on the itinerary. I do really hope you've enjoyed this video on Gotrek. I'm looking forward to making more character focuses in the future. I very much hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to leave a like and comment telling me what you think of this rambunctious dwarf, and who your favorite character is. If you want to see more of this content, subscribe to the channel so you're notified of when I drop a new video. For now, that is all I have. I am Sigmar's Lorekeeper. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.